Hi everyone, welcome to Eternal Realms and welcome to this video. We're going to talk a little bit about the astrology chart, how you can get an astrology chart and how you can do your own reading, just the basics of it. I won't get too much into the details. And also I will talk about the charts that I make for the month ahead tarot readings, and also I post on my community page and kind of tell you what the keywords are and how you can read it for yourself or how you can understand it better. So first and foremost, how can you get a birth chart of yours? All you need is your birth time, your birth date, and also your birth location. Three things you're going to need, and if you're not really sure about the exact birth timing, try to get an approximate, and the same goes for location. If you live in a remote area, for example, pick the closest city that you can find. And yeah, that should be a good enough approximate. Now the websites, there are a lot of free websites available, but the top three I will mention are astrocharts.com, astro.com, and astroseek.com. Each of these websites have different facilities that they provide basically. From my preferences, I like Astro Charts because it has a nice presentation and the lines are a lot more clear. Also gives you a nice little list, very concise, of what the planets are and where and the degrees and everything. Meanwhile, in the other spaces, there's a lot more details that are mixed in. So if you're a beginner, you might not find that very useful. Although on astroseek.com you can find a short overview of what your placements mean. It's not a personal reading, but it gives you a good delineation of what the positioning means basically. Okay, so there are two types of birth charts now, the Western Tropical and we have the Eastern Sidereal. Both of these have different formats. The Western chart is basically circular and the Eastern side is a square format. I will not get into the Eastern method because I'm not well versed in it, and I mostly use the Western Tropical method for any of my readings. And also the chart that you see that I post on either your tarot videos or community page are going to be circular in shape. It is comprised of 360 degrees, a circle, and is divided into 12 different houses. Each is 30 degrees each. Okay, so each and every zodiac and each and every house corresponding to it has 30 degrees in it. Now, what do houses mean? They basically correspond to different areas of your life. Okay, so the first house, for example, talks about your personality, your attitude, and kind of the way that you see reality. What is your format of that? All of that is in the first house, and that's also where the rising sign or the ascendant sign sits. So from that point on, from that zodiac on, you can describe the rest of the circle and which zodiac impacts which area of your life. Okay. Now, getting back to the houses, we have the second house, which governs your value system. What do you spend on? How do you spend on things? Is it your time, your money, your resource, or attention? What exactly do you spend? What do you value the most or the least? All of that can be in that particular house. And the zodiac and the planets in there are going to tell you how exactly you express it. What are the details about this area? Now, the third house is about your siblings, your community, your communication, and that includes nonverbal and verbal communication. Also, your early school years, among a lot of other things. Also have short distance travels, whether you like it or don't like it, things like that. Now, we have the fourth house. That is about our home and family environment, our roots and ancestry as well. And apart from that, it talks about the private self. The fifth house talks about your inner child. It talks about your future children and the children you currently have. It can also talk about creativity, inspiration, imagination, depending on what zodiac you actually have, but it can be a part of your playtime, for example. Apart from that, it is also about your romantic life. It is more about the dating bit, not really the very serious portions, although sometimes it can say that you don't date just for fun based on the zodiacs that you have, and also the planets. Okay, then we move on to the sixth house, which is about your occupation. How do you come of service into the world? What do you do every day? What's your lifestyle? What are your routines? What do you make a part of your life story, basically? The routines not only in a physical sense, but also your emotional state. What's the first thing you think about? What's the last thing you think about? Things like that as well can come in Apart from that, it is also about the people who are working for you, if you have that going on. And it can also just talk about your diets and health regimens as well. Also can talk about your health in general. So if there are any chronic issues, for example, Chiron might be in this house or in Virgo. Okay, now we move to the 7th house, and this is where the descendant is. That is what zodiac sign was setting in the Western Hemisphere when you were born. That is going to be where you see your partnerships. This is the relationship house, basically. Any one-to-one intimate connections that you have. It can be close friendships, business partnerships as well. But yes, people generally look at this house as the marriage house and the commitment, long-term commitment house here. Okay, so more details are going to be in that area. Apart from that, it also talks about unincorporated parts of you. So your not really shadow aspects, but these are parts of you that other people notice and would describe you as that, but you don't really agree with that. For example, if you have a Libra rising, right opposite yours is going to be Aries, and people might describe you as very active and go-getting, innovative, competitive, or like you like a good challenge, you want to be the first of something, and so on and so forth. But you might be like, what, really? I wish I was like that, but I'm more aesthetic and I like beautiful things, I like colors and things like that. Right? So you would not agree, but people see this in you, and that's kind of part of the descendant. I can keep going on, but we'll move ahead. Now in the 8th house, we have the shadows and the denied parts of us. The things that we kind of cast away, not because it's actually bad or evil in any way, but because it was disapproved while we were growing up, either by our parents or the family in general, or the society that we lived in, or it's just a fear that came with time. Maybe we had a bad dream one time when we were a kid and it just left an imprint. It also is where the traumas are sitting. So this is the house of fears and insecurities, things that are underneath the surface. And we think it is hidden and far away, but it is actually secretly influencing us. On the flip side, that secret influence can also be your secret power. Okay, that secret superpower. What exactly is the key to your success or transformations in life? How do you go from being in a victim mindset to an authority mindset, or whatever it is? Okay, this is a house of transformations. Things completely change because of continued stress and also continued effort to eliminate that stress. Okay, now we have the 9th house, which is our connection with the divine. Do we connect with the divine in a practical way? Should we be able to feel the divine? Or is it going to be something more intuitive? Is it the gut instinct? There are many ways that we feel and connect with the larger part of us. Okay, it does not have to be God specifically, but it can be, your belief system, your value system about the world. What do you think? What's your philosophy here? Do you think the world is bad, full of horrible people, and no one wants to be helping each other? Or is it the exact opposite? What is it you believe and where do you land? That's kind of this house here. Quite a big topic. So, of course, it's also the house of future vision. You kind of look ahead into the future and you plan ahead like 5 years down the line. Or you can be like, I can almost see that happening in the future for me someday, or something like that. Then on the 10th house, we have goals, our ambitions, and usually our midheaven is placed here, but it depends on where you were born. Farther up or farther south is going to have a slight tilt because of the Earth's axis. But regardless, this house contains that reputation that you cultivate for yourself. So it's not your occupation, but it's your profession. Okay, it's more long term, basically. So for example, you can be a lawyer or an engineer, but that's not really your designation. Your designation would be in the 6th house. Yes. Now, 10th house can also be just your public image, not specifically linked to career necessarily, but it's just your place of prominence. So what do random people that walk around, how do they see you? And how do they recognize you? Things like that. Now, the 11th house is also a little bit about the future vision, but it's more in the sense of, long-term dreams and aspirations. There's a more hopeful and idealistic quality about it because we're not bogged down by current stresses, right? So when we think a little bit farther, we're like, yeah, I do have hope for the future, right? Something of that sort is the 11th house. Or it could be exactly the opposite, depending on what zodiac and planet you have going on there. 11th house is also about humanity at large. So again, how do we contribute or not contribute to society at large? Right now, we have the internet, so we are automatically connected with the global community. So whenever we think about, doing something public, we have to think about the entire world, not really one specific place. But earlier, it was more like about the state or about the country, more local than, we have right now. But regardless, it is about connecting to the world at large, and that consists of many different types of people, all with unique and original traits. And we want to be respectful of all of that, right? And that's how we create kind of a global harmony. So that's what this house ideally wants to manifest. So these are your ideals and your goals in life. Okay, now all of that said and done, we also have influenced the world. We have shown up very interestingly in our unique ways. And now we go into the 12th house. This is where everything just melts. This is the Piscean place. This is where we go to sleep. Basically, if we were to divide this as an entire clock, then the 12th house is we are sleeping. Now we are dreaming. And in terms of a life cycle, this talks about life after death. And, you're a soul now watching and observing your past life or your, actions, your loved ones, whatever it is. So yeah, that would be the big picture meaning of that particular house. Now, in your birth chart, in your everyday life, this might be your attitude towards life after death. Do you believe that or not? That could be answered through this house. But apart from that, it talks about the unconscious mind as well. And it talks about all the influences that we have that we can't really control right now. We just have it, and we might not even see this part within us. That's kind of what the 12th house is. It's very hard to describe. It's very vague. How do you pin down a dream, right? How do you describe it? It's just random things happen at random times. So, this is the best house where you can work from behind the scenes and you can engage your imagination, let your intuition tell you where to go, and you don't really need a set structure for this, right? So in a sense, this is also a bit of a secret superpower. You just inherently are talented in this, but you don't really know it, or you don't give it that much importance, okay? So those were the houses, and each of the houses now correspond to a zodiac if we place them in a very traditional manner. Of course, we're all born at different times in different places, so the rising sign is going to change, but the sequence of the zodiac is still going to remain that way. So we have Aries as the first house, Taurus in the second house, Gemini in the third house, Cancer in the fourth house, Leo in the fifth house, sixth is Virgo, seventh is Libra, eighth is Scorpio, ninth is Sagittarius, 10th is Capricorn, 11th is Aquarius, and 12th is Pisces. So those were the zodiac correspondences with the houses, and as they shift, there will be a combination of what the house means plus the zodiac that is there. Does it contradict or does it not? That will influence how we make decisions and what our priorities are. A lot of detail there, I won't go into them. Let's move into the next step, which is the planets. This one's important. We have around 10 planets, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we have 10 planets, of which 2 are luminaries, technically, the sun and the moon. The sun is about the focus. It's also representing your father figure, your conscious mind, your goals in life, and so on. But I'm going to now take the example of the charts that I post, and I can just move along with the terminology I'm using and explain how you can watch this as well. So we have the sun, which I mark as focus. Where is your focus shifting? As every zodiac season changes, we're always shifting our focus in life. For example, sun is going to move into Aries in the month of March, right? For some whose Aries is in the 12th house, you're going to be focusing on resting, taking some time off, taking good stock of your, backdrop mind. Are you well rested? Do you have enough courage? Is there anything you need to see? Things like that. But for some other person, Aries could be the rising sign or the descendant or something of that sort. And then you can see a different type of focus that comes in. So that is going to be based on your rising sign, and all of the charts are posted accordingly. But you can see the sun with focus. I don't track the moon because it changes signs like 2.5 days. So we're going to go all over the chart over here. So there's not really much point. But I do mark the new moon and the full moon areas of your life for your rising sign. The new moon is called beginnings and the full moon is called completion. By the way, I use all of these keywords so you don't have to remember what planet is it and what does the planet represent, and then interpret it for yourself, right? So yeah, this is kind of, I guess, for beginners. All right, now we move to the personal planets. These are faster moving planets, they're closer to Earth, and they impact our everyday environment. The first one is Mercury, which is the planet of intelligence, mind, the rational mind, our communication devices and methods and skills, right? It's really important, and I call it mind in my chart. That is basically describing what are you thinking about mostly? How is your mind oriented? Let's say you're doing a lot of paperwork, but Mercury is in Pisces. Pisces is kind of a dreamer, you know? It doesn't want to get so bogged down by documentation and this and that. So it'll be a little bit uncomfortable. Your mind might be a little bit more foggy, and there needs to be a different approach to how you solve certain tedious tasks, let's say. Things like that. So when you know that, you know where to pay special attention in your everyday life. Next, we move to Venus, which is the planet of love. We're all concerned with love and relationships. We all like connections. So Venus is as well a personal planet, and it shows our love attitude. How are we expressing ourselves, and where are we getting love and support? Okay, so it goes both ways with all these labels, all these planets moving signs. It's what you are giving, but also what you're receiving from that area. Next, we have Mars, which is the planet of action, taking initiative and movement forward. Where do you just bolster forward no matter what? What is your motivation style? How do you get inspired? What picks you up? What are your energy levels? That's Mars. And I call it activity in my chart. So basically it says, where are you putting in more action, and where is there busyness in your life? So if it is in the third house for you, Mars moving in there, it might be that you have a lot of emails and a lot of calls and a lot of activity in the third house topics. Then we move to the outer planets. These are really, they take a long time to move around, and they also have long-term impacts. They also have global impacts, okay? So Jupiter, the planet of luck, fortune, abundance, expansion, and also protection, is marked by expanse. So where are you experiencing basically a growth in yourself? Sometimes this can be that, if you're spending, then you might spend a lot. Okay, so there is an expanding quality to it. If you're spending a lot, if you're getting a lot, that's basically how it goes. Now, another planet we have is Saturn, and this is marked by restrict because it contracts everything. Does kind of the opposite of Jupiter. So yes, Saturn is the planet of karma and stays in each zodiac for around 3 years. Now it is going to move into Pisces, which I've talked about in the month ahead readings. So yes, those areas in Pisces, you will see the restrict going on there. Whatever is vague is going to be restricted. Anything that we're taking too loosey-goosey without any, concern for time or structure or discipline, Saturn is going to find those spaces and be like, we need a little bit more structure here. It wouldn't hurt, Also brings in dissolution of fear, kind of helps you recognize what you've been ignoring. Pisces likes to ignore certain times. So Saturn brings into focus, like, here, what do I do with this? It's chaotic. It's a chaotic mess. What do I do with this? And then we spend a couple of years fixing that area, basically, growing more, maturing more, and so on. Okay, now we go to the transpersonal planets, which is Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So Uranus is the planet of change, and I mark it by change. It's not here in this chart, but it was here in the previous readings. I think in the month of January, Uranus went direct. So yes, that was marked in the chart. Okay, but either way, Uranus is the planet of rebellion, revolution, mind-blowing genius, and big changes around the world. There's also breakthroughs and breakdowns of things that just don't work. So I call it change. Next, we have Neptune, which is the planet of bliss and transcendental bliss, basically. There's a lot of that going on. Something that brings you so much joy, okay? For example, if Neptune is in the 5th house, children bring you so much joy that it's even very hard to put into words. You just feel it and you know it, and that's that. Okay, that's Neptune. Apart from that, it can be illusions and delusions. So sometimes we have an overly idealistic view of something. It's like the fairy tale imagination. That would be Neptune in a very strong place, for example. Yes. Next we have Pluto. This is a huge one, the farthest one away, and is basically in the verge of our solar system, and kind of looks out at the dark unknown and the unseen. It is constantly in touch with everything that is not known to us. Therefore, this planet is about not being afraid to go into the unknown. Just dive deep, look into your subconscious, understand what's underneath there. There are like magical things out there. Yes, it can feel scary because it's unpredictable, but why do we need to control, right? So Pluto brings in that purge and that transformation, digging deep into the depths and bringing it up to the surface for close examination. And that's where you find all these amazing answers. In the beginning, like I said, it can feel a little bit scary. It's transformation with Pluto is not really the most fun thing, but it is absolutely needed. So yes, this was a little bit of an introduction about the houses, the zodiacs, the planets, and also the terminology I use. It is easier for you to understand the charts that I post from now on every month, and also to know and understand your zodiac reading, because there might be some times that I don't mention the astrology if not too much is happening. Okay, so I hope it helped. Please let me know. And if you have any other requests, I would be very happy to expand on either of them. I really like talking about astrology, so I have really no problem. So you let me know. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye. And Jupiter and Saturn basically are good cop, bad cop. That's how I just identify them. Both are amazing teachers, and they both have a very wonderful place in astrology. The lessons that they teach is just priceless. And they're not too far away and not too close, so they don't bother with the everyday life of emailing and phone calls, but then they're not so far away like Uranus and Neptune that you don't even feel anything, right? So they're in that sweet spot here of growth, lessons, learning, karma, rewards, things like that. And Uranus kind of does not even bother explaining. There is no structure to this planet and what it does. Okay, it just happens, it's spontaneous. There you go. Now, do with it as you must. But either way, whatever it brings in is something that we just need in that time. Sometimes we don't even know what we need, we're just like, I don't know, something is just not right, moments like that. So Uranus takes advantage of those particular moments where you don't even know that you desperately needed that particular gift that Uranus brings in. Okay, it can feel difficult in the moment, it can feel pleasant later. So I'm not calling it good or bad, it's very, very neutral when we come to astrology. One thing I find different between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, I'm just going off on my side remarks now, I guess, but one thing I find different is Pluto is felt more relative to these guys. Maybe because it's so deep that you can feel it. It's sort of, where do you feel that empowerment? You don't know where it comes from. It just comes from within. Something just switches. It's a background thought. I don't know. Like wherever Pluto is, you can see that you're empowered by that area of life. And that you have had good mentors or authority figures, perhaps, probably in your ancestry, your grandparents, for example, who were very knowledgeable. You respected them, but you also feared them. Those types of individuals, perhaps, who can just say one sentence really compact and then just change your world completely. I think Pluto represents those individuals and that type of influence, basically. So, of course, I guess we've all felt it. But Uranus and Neptune, I don't know, they have a little bit of a curveball way of showing, I suppose, or it's just impacting a lot on the global scale. Pluto does too, but these guys, mostly they impact the global changes as far as I've seen. Unless you have like a very strong Uranus placement or Neptune. I might be biased in this one, but yes.